Hi, first grade. This week we're going to be learning about what stained glass is and then using our different colors and patterns that we have talked about to create a spring picture in the design of a stained glass window. Our picture will be a faux stained glass. Faux means fake. Looking at churches and different buildings, you might have seen stained glass with all its beautiful colors and beautiful reflections it creates when the light shines through it. Let's learn about real stained glass.
A real stained glass window is made by first tracing a pattern, tracing it right onto the pieces of glass, which are then cut. An artist carefully cuts and pops out each piece of glass, making sure they accurately fit inside of all the parts of the artist's pattern. Once all of the pieces of glass are cut and they fit, then the artist has to connect them, but not with glue. The artist has to cut strips of lead. The lead has grooves in it, and the grooves help to hold the glass in place. But each one of those pieces of lead has to be cut to a certain size to fit each separate piece of glass. As you can imagine, this kind of artwork takes a lot of time and focus. Once the artist has cut out each piece of glass and fit them in place with each piece of lead, then the artist must adhere the pieces of lead together, especially at the joints where the two parts come together. For that, the artist must melt a little bit of lead with a method called soldering on both the front and the back. But when the artist is finished and has added a little bit of burnishing sander to help hold things in place, then once the artist is finished, he or she is left with a beautiful stained glass window.
Remember, as you're following along with my drawing, to pause the video when needed. The first thing you want to do is write your name and class code on the bottom right corner. Then we're going to add some tulips in about the middle area of our paper. Start by drawing a really big letter U. So I'm making sure it's nice and big. I can fit several fingers inside this U. I'm going to start at the top, curve a line all the way down to the bottom on both sides, and then draw kind of a curved triangle in between. When I start my next one, I don't want it to be in the exact same spot, so I'm putting it up a little bit higher. And since my U's are so big, I only have room for one more tulip. Really like to fill the space. The next step is to create the stems. I'm going to do this by drawing two lines, not just one. That gives me room to color. And then add two leaves at the bottom. So to create the stems, just a long, skinny rectangle, and then you can add on your leaves. Your leaves don't have to be shaped like my leaves. You can make them any shape you prefer. After you get your leaves done, we're going to create a horizon line that overlaps the flowers a little bit. So if you bump into your flower stems, just jump over them and continue the line until you get all the way over to the other side. This creates our ground and sky. Now, since we're making a faux stained glass window, I'm going to divide my sky and my ground into different sections. Notice every time I start a new line, it either begins on one of my tulips or it begins on one of my other lines, and it doesn't stop in the middle of the paper. It continues on until I've reached the edge. Now that my drawing is complete, I'm going to begin adding some textures and patterns. So I'm going to use lines and shapes to create lots of different details to my picture. I've decided to use markers to create my patterns and textures, and I'm going to use only cool colors. Cool colors are blues, greens, and violets. Finally, I'm ready to color in my picture. Remember when you're coloring to use good craftsmanship. That means you do your best to stay inside the lines, fill in the peekaboos, and always color the entire picture. I'm going to continue to use cool colors for most of my picture, and then I'm going to use some warm colors, pinks and reds, to make my flowers stand out. When I'm coloring my sky and my grass, I don't want to use just one shade of green. I'm going to try to find different values. So value is the lightness or darkness of a color. So in some sections I'll use light greens, in others dark greens. Same for the sky, using a variety of light blues and dark blues. Once you have finished coloring your entire picture and you are ready to turn it in, take a picture of it and click on the link in the description below this video. When you get to that link, scroll down and find your class code and then find your name. You're going to insert your picture into the empty cell that is next to your name for the art project due May 1st.